Okay, I was on mute, so nobody could hear me. Hopefully you can hear me now. Are you there, Melissa?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I was actually unmuted because today, so I thought have people go ahead and chime in with questions if they wanted to. So I did that, or I think I did. So Stephanie, I see Stephanie Carter on. Are you able to talk or say anything?
Yes.
Let's see
Can
if
you
we
hear
can hear
me?
you.
Hey.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I was just, I thought it just would be nicer since we don't have a large group if we could just have it more of like a meeting kind of thing
Okay.
and a webinar really. And that way, if you have questions, you can just go ahead and jump in. I'm looking at the other attendees too and trying to get them unmuted. Okay. So it looks like it's about 2 minutes after 2, so hopefully most everyone that's logged on is going to be logged on. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So welcome, Melissa. Sorry about that. Sorry I threw you for a loop there with the GoToMeeting instead of the Zoom.
Okay.
But you're here. So, and hopefully I'm showing my screen. So are you seeing the title slide there? It's the purple slide that says Webinar Reviewer Training.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
good. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I had sent out an email earlier today, which hopefully most of you got, where I had just attached a document that's sort of like your guiding document that you'll use when you review your programs, and you can kind of use it to follow along today if you want to and make some notes on. But welcome. Thanks for coming to the webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and advance the slide here. So my name is Lori Savada. If there's, for those of you who I haven't met and talked to, I work at the Akuhai Central Office, and I am the professional staff liaison to the Akuhai Conference Program Committee. So I've been doing this for about 10 or 11 years or something like that. So I'm excited to go to Portland, and also online with me today is Melissa McDonald, who is doing the admin duties, which is a big job for the program committee this year. So welcome, Melissa.
Yep.
So I'm probably going to do the majority of the talking today. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the process that we're going to use to review the programs. And I've got a couple slides that I'm going to go through first, just some sort of key milestones and dates. And Melissa, if at any time if I forget something or you just want to throw something in there, just go ahead and just interrupt me.
Will do.
Okay. So, and I want to make sure you realize that some of you have done this process a number of times. Some of you may be new to it. When I go through it, I'm going to make it seem a lot more complicated than it actually is. It really is basically I'm just showing you how to use our online reviewing system to view and score programs. So it really is just it's a matter really of just logging in, clicking on your list of programs, reviewing the programs, and putting in numbers online to score them and submitting them, and just sort of wash, rinsing, repeating that process until you've made it all the way through your bucket, is what we call them. Those are the different categories or areas that you are assigned to as a reviewer. So it's really a pretty simple process, and we just like to give people a little tutorial to help you sort of visualize what the process is going to be like. So I have our email addresses up here, so if at any time you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either Melissa or myself with anything. We'll be happy to go ahead and get those questions answered right away. If you're having trouble logging in, of course, I can help you with that. So a couple deadline reminders. So the call for programs is open. It's been open since early October, and it closes on Tuesday, December 3rd, which is our sort of typical time frame that we've been using, I think, for the past at least 4 or 5 years or so. This seems to work pretty well. And we are getting a nice group of programs in, so it's kind of fun to see those rolling in and seeing what kinds of topics are being submitted. And then I did want to mention that the call for programs closes on, yeah, I think I actually did this wrong. It says review process will begin on Sunday, but it actually it starts, I think, on December 6th and goes through the 15th. Is that right, Melissa?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so disregard that. I just looked at it and said, that's not right at all because the call for programs closes on the 3rd. And then I think the round 1, which is the one, the folks that are online today, you'll be starting your review process on December 6th. I think that's Friday. And it closes, not begins, on Sunday, December 15th. So that is, I want to point out, a much shorter time frame than we have had in the past due to some of the scheduling of some other activities. We had to shorten that up a bit, so I wanted to point that out. And then the second and final round actually closes on Monday, December 30th. And then what happens in January is the program committee gets together, and it really is, I would call that really almost like kind of a 3rd round where we actually slot the programs and sort of finalize the slate of programs for 2020. So those are the major deadlines. So if you just remember, start on the 6th, finish on the 15th. I think it's something like 12 days. Is that right, Melissa? Something like that?
Yeah, it's about 10 and a half. 10 and a half, 11. So yeah.
Yep. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of jump into the demo or the tutorial for reviewing. And again, if you have any questions, just go ahead, and I've unmuted the phone, so stop me. But if you'd rather use the Q&A box, you can type in your question too, and we'll take some time at the end for any kind of questions you have too. But basically what you're going to do, and I'm going to drag over and now you should be seeing the Akuwai homepage. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Okay, so where you're going to start is you're going to log in to the Akuwai website, just like you would for anything else that you do with Akuwai. If you're, have an invoice to pay, or you're going to buy a book, or you're going to register for the conference, this homepage is where you start, and you're going to log in here with whatever your credentials are. And I think I have this on a later slide, but just a reminder, it doesn't hurt to go ahead and try logging in now to see if your login works, or if you remember your password, or maybe you need to update your credentials, because you wouldn't want to be sitting there in that 12-day period or 10-day period, I guess, and then be on the last day and then suddenly discover you can't log in. So that would be a bummer. So now's a good time to try to take a look at that and log in. So while you're looking at that, on the back end, I'm going to go ahead and log in as my favorite test user, which happens to be Batman, or Bruce Wayne. And he has a little he has an account with us, and I love to use Batman as a test case. So I'm logging in as him, and I'll drag that over to the screen so you can see it in a moment. I'm sort of doing it on the console in the back end, so you won't need to do any of that. This is just a test scenario. And of course, it's taking a long time to load up. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just drag this over so you can see it. So you should be seeing Bruce Wayne's, well, he's starting to log in, and I wanted to show you this because this might be something you might run into as you're logging in. So sometimes you have the opportunity to either log in as an individual or an organization. You want to always choose the individual and then hit continue. And you can see Batman or Bruce Wayne's profile page. So when you log in, it's going to take you to this page. And what you want to do is go down to see where this says applications, and there will be some links there. And you can see that Batman has, a couple links here because he's done some reviewing for us in the past. And your link, and I think it says this in your documentation too, is going to say review entries for 2020. This says 2019 because I'm using last year's as a test, but yours will say review entries for 2020 Akuwai Conference and Expo. So you'll click on that, and it will bring you to a page that looks like this. And if you perchance, one thing you might want to check is make sure this little toggle here is going to say round 1 ACE 2020 reviewers, not round 2. If it says round 2, you're not going to see anything. It should default to round 1, but sometimes it doesn't. So you want to check that if you don't see anything. What we're going to see is a nice long list like this. And, some, as we call them, buckets will be larger than others. This one has about 25 or so in it. So you can see there's a list there, and then there's 2 links there. And one of them says view entry, and the other one says submit scores. I always feel like these should be swapped around. View should be first and submit should be second, but whatever. So what you want to do, and I'm you know, this was a revelation to me when someone told me how to do this. I'm sure you know this, but if you hit your control key and click on view entry, it will open up in a new tab instead of just navigating away from this page. Let's see, so I get a new tab up here, and then it'll give me all of the information about that particular program. I can view the title, the description, the ID number, you know, the learning objectives. This is not a very complete proposal, but it's just a sample, and all of the information that you're going to use to be reviewing it. And if you go back to your main list, you can also see this tab here that says Submit Scores. So if you also hit Control and click on that, it'll open it up in a separate tab. Now this is where you have two screens. It's really helpful. Like, I actually have three screens. So what I like to do is, you know, have this list on one page, have the competition open on one, and then the evaluation box open on another one. But you can manage it with two screens. And then what you want to do too is make sure the IDs match too. So this is ID 46535. This one has the same ID, because when you are looking at this long list, it's kind of hard to get it mixed up, to click view entry for one and submit scores for another. I've done that before myself. So I always try to, and I think I put that in the notes too, to, you know, that's something to watch out for. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to submit some scores, and it's 1 through 4, and you can see the obviously the criteria here. Obviously 1 being the least, 4 being the most or the best. So a lower score is a lower number is at least positive, higher number is more positive. So you're going to go ahead and submit all of your scores here as so. And just like this. And then you're going to type your comments in here. And again, just another kind of tidbit to watch out for when you're making, now the comments are very helpful. So we try to encourage you as a reviewer to include your comments, because that really helps the review coordinators in the second round kind of sort out what you were thinking when you gave the scores. And it also kind of helps you remind you too, when you go back and, you know, if you're scoring 50 programs, sometimes you don't, you know, when you're doing it over a course of several days, you don't remember why you scored something the way you did. You can always go back and look at your notes. So you type in your comments here, and then another important thing to remember about these is that eventually the people who submitted the program will be reading your comments. So it's important to try to, you know, make comments that are honest but constructive. You know, we don't like to have people read things like, this was awful, or I don't know what this person was thinking. I rarely ever see anything like that, but it does happen. So you always want to think about the person that's going to be reading them. So you type in your comments here, and then you would hit submit. And I'm not going to do it because I don't want to mess the system up. But after you submit it, it will give you an opportunity. I think it'll say go back to the list, and you'll click the link and it'll take you back to this page. And then as I was saying earlier, it's just a wash, rinse, repeat. You go on to the next one, and you view it, you submit it, or you score it, and you submit it. You move on to the next one. You can go back and change your scores too. So after you submit the score, actually a third column will show up here, and it'll say something like view scores, and you can go back and you can look at that and say, oh, I really started out too harsh. I think I'm going to ease up, and you can adjust those. That really is the whole process. It is pretty simple. I think sometimes the biggest challenges with it are sometimes getting logged in. And then of course, just keeping track of, view and submit as you're going along. And then just the challenge, I think, of time management. When you've got 10 days to do it and you've got, 50 or more programs, you really have to kind of pace yourself and make sure that you're leaving yourself enough time to do the work. Do you have any tips there, Melissa? Because I know you've done this several times before you've ended up being the admin, so. Okay. So I'm going to flip back to the PowerPoint here for a second to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oops. So I just want to go over the key points to remember, and those are that, I mentioned this earlier, but making sure your contact information is current and that you can log in. Now's a great time to try. Making sure that the entries in the score sheet, just using those IDs at the top of the page to just as a double check for yourself to make sure you're scoring the right entry. It's real easy to mix up. The longer the list, the more difficult it gets. Did want to mention too, and you probably saw this when we viewed that one entry, that the process is masked, so you're not going to see any names or schools. That's on purpose. If you come across your own proposal, don't review it. Just let us know. That's usually what I ask folks to do, is they just email me and say, oh, I didn't realize my own program I submitted is in my bucket. What would you like me to do? Either, email myself or your review coordinator, and we'll make sure that program gets reviewed in a different bucket or somehow. I mentioned that it's okay, you have a mechanism where you can go back and edit scores and change them using 2 monitors. If you don't have that, maybe there's a way you could snag an extra monitor from your IT department perhaps and see if they can get you set up with that, because it really does make things a lot easier. And if you don't have a second monitor, once you get one, you'll never want to let go of it. And then I mentioned before that the comments on the proposals are super important, important to do, and then important also to remember that you don't want to make comments that you wouldn't be comfortable having, anyone else read. So those are tips. Melissa, did you have anything to add?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm going to try to do some muting here to see if maybe I can eliminate some of the noise. Hold on here. There, I think I did it.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to start saying something earlier. I didn't think you could hear.
Sorry.
Okay. I was going to say, one of the tips that I had when I'm reviewing them is you were going to go through and you're going to find that usually with several programs, as you go through the first through, there's some similar comments that you might have. So one, for example, is, wow, this looks like a lot of content for, this particular amount of time for this program. And so what I would typically do is I usually do sort of a notepad document on the side for myself with some of the comments that I found myself giving more than once. And that can make your review process go a little quicker, because you've already written it in a way that's constructive. And if it applies to the one that you're currently reviewing, you can copy and paste it over. So that's one of the things that I do to help it go a little bit quicker. If you don't have the double monitors, I've definitely done this on a laptop before. You can just open 2 browser windows next to each other and it works just as well. But as I agree with Lori, double monitors are wonderful.
Yeah, once you have those, you'll never go back. And now, I've ended up with 3 somehow and can live without it. If I had a 4th, I'd take it. So yeah, I think those are all good tips. And the last slide, once again, is my contact information and Melissa's contact information. And I said this would be short, and it is short. 18 minutes, I think that might be a record. Are there any questions? And I'm sorry I had to mute everybody again because there was some background noise happening there. So if you've got questions, please go ahead and use that Q&A panel to just go ahead and type those right in, and happy to answer any of those. I'll give folks a minute. Oh, go ahead, Melissa.
Mention that another resource that you will have for you is one of the individuals who's going to get in touch with you coming up here in the next 2 weeks or so is your program review coordinator. So each of those buckets has a coordinator who's responsible for it. So there'll be another resource for you as you go through the process, and you'll hear from them fairly regularly about the deadlines and the other things that as they come up and as things are ready to review and such. So you'll be hearing from those individuals here coming up as we get closer to the end of November break.
Yep, good point. Good point. Thank you for that. And it doesn't look like we have any questions. We did record this, so we'll be going ahead and posting this. I guess, are we going to put this on, where are we going to put this, Melissa? Are we going to put it on the share site in the community, or?
Yeah, maybe we'll put it on the community and we can just let everyone know how to get there to the community. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I'll go ahead, I'll put it on YouTube, so it'll just be a link to that, and then we can just send it to folks too if someone wants to see it. Again, you have that document that I gave you as well. So that really, the document basically outlines everything that I just showed you today. So, and usually people don't have too much trouble with the mechanics of getting this done. So, but again, if you do, please reach out to us, and we would be really happy to take care of that. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and I'll give you the rest of your half hour, your hour back that you had reserved for this, because we are done And I hope everyone has a great afternoon, and be watching for communications to come out regarding, the review process and when that's going to start, and your review coordinators like Melissa mentioned and all of that. So I hope everyone has a great afternoon, and I will be talking with you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Melissa.
Bye.